This episode has been brought to you from the DGMS Studios, home of Don't Get Me Started, Lethal and Mully Live and Surftown. Found at Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music and wherever you listen to your podcast. In the studio today, we had the pleasure of interviewing John Caruso. John has had over 30 years of experience in the radio industry, from CFM to Triple M. He's a true veteran of the airways. He's also a talented writer, an MC, and a podcaster behind Everyone Has a Story. A dedicated father and husband, his charisma and kindness truly make him an all-round nice guy. Thanks, John, for coming in. It was an absolute pleasure. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Lethal and Mully Live. As always, I have opposite me my co-host, my colleague, and my partner in crime. Mully, how are you today, mate?
Look, I'm really well, and, all those adjectives that you just put before my name's making me feel really good. I'm glad I've turned up.
You look good.
Oh, thanks, mate. I actually had a close shave this morning because we've got a very special guest here. We've got the one and only John Caruso, well-known media identity around town, so I had to, make sure that I looked good, smelled good.
John.
Yeah, good morning, or hello, or irrespective of wherever you might be.
Mate, we are excited, as you can tell, to have you in the studio.
Well, thank you. I feel humbled and I'm honoured to have been asked. I hope I live up to expectations.
The only expectations that we have here is that we discuss what we want to discuss and we just simply be ourselves.
Well, good. This could go anywhere.
Absolutely, and I hope it does. And for those of you that wondering why we are wishing, rather, that we had cameras here, Lee's got the biggest smile on his face and he's looking like he's had a really good night's sleep and hasn't touched a drop of drink for months, which I think is true, isn't it?
It's a year.
A year. It's going really well.
Really? A year sober?
A year sober.
Good on you. Congrats.
Thanks, mate.
John's also got a radiant face. He looks like he's got up this morning, had his cold shower, he's done his Wim Hof breathing, probably cycled 5 kilometres, had a swim in the river and all of the above.
All of the above.
And he looks 27.
Whereas I smashed it last night with Chardonnay, slept on my back, snored.
Are you the Keith Richards of the podcast?
Yeah.
Is that what?
He certainly is.
Not anymore. Actually, Keith Richards said, has given up smoking.
Yeah, I did hear that. He appeared on I love the Stones, at least probably cool. Yeah. Keith was on a podcast recently. I was very surprised that he'd given up the cigarettes.
Well, apparently he used to smell like a bushfire, they reckon. And
he looks like one.
Oh, he doesn't look good, does he?
Oh, really? Because I have a take on that. I think I love the way that they've aged disgracefully.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I've always admired about both of them, Mick Jagger and even, any of those octogenarians that are at that age and that physical, I love that physicality. And that's what, because I'm almost 60.
Really?
So I don't.
Get out.
My goal is to be as physical and as active in my octogenarian decade as I am or have been in the past.
Well, you're not doing a good job, mate, because like I said, you look at least 32, doesn't he?
It does. Yeah. All right. You know what Keith said when somebody asked him about why he's given up smoking? He said, apparently it's not
too
good.
expensive.
No, he said, apparently it's not good for you. So it's taken you 50 years, Keith.
Yeah. But good on him. I mean, that's he's a marvel, isn't he? He's 81, 82. I'm not sure how old.
And they're still doing it. They're still out there.
Yeah, of sorts. Look, they're on that trajectory now where they're winding down, I feel, when Charlie Watts passed away, because I thought, we're going to probably cover a lot of territory because now you got me onto music.
Okay.
Well, let's stay there. I think that the Stones still had 1 or 2 good albums in them. I thought their last album was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, look, I'm a big lover of music. And thanks to my sister who introduced me to music in the 70s. So she's 10 years older than me. We never really hung out together because of the age gap. But what she did do, she had a little Panasonic vinyl record player. And she had all those classics like Hot August Night, Hotel California, Creedence.
Classic.
And I would be in the lounge room while she played all her vinyl in her bedroom. And I would just listen to all these albums. And I fell in love. And thanks to her, I have this great passion and love for music. But this is an interesting conversation about albums, music and heritage artists, because I had this conversation with another good friend of mine. So these heritage artists like McCartney, the Stones, Elton John, they release new albums. And if you're a fan of the Eagles, for example, if you're a fan of these particular artists, often, and I don't know if you guys are the same, you listen to their new material and you think, it's not as good as Exile on Main Street or something like that. It's not as good as what they did back in the 70s. And I did a bit of research on it, and there's a great, I don't know if it's a psychology. I know your son's studied or
psychology.
I don't know if it's a psychological thing, but there's these two sayings. When you're in your 20s and you're almost at that peak of creativity, I think there's a term called you have fluid intelligence. Where you're writing and you might be painting, whatever artistic endeavor you're into. And at the age of 20, in your early 20s, it's an open book. It's just your scope is so wide.
You're so receptive.
Yeah, and apparently when you're in your 70s and your 80s, like the Stones and all the artists I was talking about, it's called crystallized intelligence. Have you heard this before?
I like that. I heard the first part before.
Fluid intelligence and then crystallized. And all you can do, so then you listen to McCartney's album that he recorded in his 80s, with crystallized intelligence, you're looking back and you're not looking ahead and you're writing about experiences that you've kind of already had. Your vision and your focus is a crystallized perception. And I don't know if that answers, because I've often felt this, when I listen to albums, I think, it's not as good as this or that. I think, why is that? Why aren't they writing songs like they used to?
Well, this is really, really interesting, and I've often wondered why aren't they writing songs or creating new music like they used to. And a classic example is Neil Young.
Yeah, good example.
Great albums back in the 70s, and he's still putting out stuff now. And I often wondered if they've had so much success that with that comes financial support and comfort. Yeah. And so there is a complacency, whereas if you're a hungry young rocker wanting to push in, you got to create and hope that your new album's going to break it for you.
Yeah.
And maybe that comes into it as well. But
I agree.
What you have just saying there is really, really, they look back because they've got their heritage.
They only write from a retrospective perspective.
Or maybe it is too that they are who they are. They play their music the way that they do. I think it was Angus Young said every AC/DC
there's another
album.
band,
He said every AC/DC album is the same.
The same. Yeah.
So is every Rolling Stone album the same?
Almost. But I don't deny, I think just because they're musicians that they shouldn't give up. There's great blues artists like Buddy Guy who's just released a brand new album at 89, right?
And have you heard it?
Yeah, it's great. I love all that blues, that Chicago, Delta blues stuff. What I don't deny, all these artists, Neil Young, one of them as well, is like a painter or a writer. It's an outlet, irrespective of what the album you have to create. You keep creating, don't you? So I think.
Yeah. Now, the Rolling Stones put out Black and Blue, their covers of blues albums, blues songs.
That was called something. Had to have the word blue in the title.
It wasn't Black and Blue, but but you know the album.
I do. It was a cover of blues songs.
Yes.
2014 won the Grammy for Best Blues Album.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was good.
So that's jumping out of their lane, if you like. And then their last album, Chelsea Diamonds, I thought some of the songs on there were absolute classic. Maybe, too, as longtime fans, we're so used to what they have produced over the decades, when they put something new out, that we just think, oh, yeah, that's just the Stones, and we don't really fully appreciate just how good it is.
And it's a fine line as a fan of a particular artist or genre of music, because you want them to push themselves and extend, and your expectation is you want to hear something new. And then on that album, I think it's called Hackney Diamonds.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
There's a few songs on there which are very reminiscent. There's a song on there towards the back end that sounds exactly like Tumbling Dice. And then, so your first instinct is, that's Tumbling Dice. But then you have to stop and you think, well, what's my expectation? Like it is what it is, isn't it? So it's like, what am I expecting too much? It's like, but it's just one of those cases where you say, I like their earlier work than their newer stuff.
But as you were saying before with your sister with the vinyls, now I've got myself a turntable because I found all my old vinyls and I put a few on and they sound so different to what it is now.
Yeah.
Now the greats that we like with Bowie too and the Beatles, and I'm playing them just going, get so into this, and now it seems so plain.
Which one are you talking about?
The vinyl.
The vinyl.
The vinyl sound. I spoke to you before.
Well, I have a theory on that too, Lee, because we grew up with vinyl and cassette. Now, just follow me on this journey. when CDs were released in 86 or so my vinyl collection stopped in 1986, right? Do you remember what the feeling was like? I remember people talking about compact discs in around 86, 87. And they would say things like, it's like the band is in your living room.
Yeah, so clear.
So it blew, for us that grew up with vinyl and cassettes, that transition in 86, that blew us away. And that shift in music, I can remember it was a Pioneer stereo with flat square speakers. And my first CD, oddly enough, you might remember this, EMI and the Beatles were re-releasing their UK catalogue in chronological order.
Ah.
Yes. So my first CD was Please Please Me. No, it's 1986. My first CD's an album that was originally released in 63, 65, whatever it was. And you know the first song on Please Please Me is I Saw Her Standing There. So my memory, I'm back in my childhood bedroom in Bundaberg and I slipped this CD on and out of the speakers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and in comes, McCartney's bass. It blew me across the room. So you're probably right. This thinking of vinyl, we were there at that transition that still has a big impact on me. So going back to vinyl, there's a warm analog sound. People use those adjectives a lot.
That's right.
But is it really better than digital?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Man, I am so pleased to hear this because I'm a huge fan of digital. And I like my little Bluetooth earplug. The sound that I hear of all the individual instruments, I can hear the bass. I thought, that bass line is fantastic. The drummer, wow, where did he come from? Whereas I have not picked that up in the past when I was listening to vinyl.
Yeah.
So,
I love that you said that, Mully, because I do that too. It can be a song that's been out for 60 years. And look, I'm not going to call myself a musician, but I did learn to play the guitar when I was a kid. But I listen the same way that as you just described. On one occasion, I might listen to the bass line and go, oh, gee, that's intricate. Or that's, on another occasion, I might listen to the guitar or the drums, and this appreciation is something, it feels like there's something new every time.
Yeah, and an appreciation of the musicianship. Now, take the Beatles, for example, which you've already mentioned. They were so huge and so popular and most of it came through the radio at the time, didn't it? And it seemed that every time they brought out a new song, they were climbing into a different expression of musicality or a different style. They would be doing this, they'd be doing that. Next thing you know, it's, psychedelic, I'm the Walrus, and I Want to Hold You.
Well, those 8 years were incredible.
Yeah, and so we kind of heard it in that context, a new cultural excitement of a new Beatles song. But I have found, listening to them now, through
New appreciation?
Well, yeah, it's like, I didn't know that piece of music was in there.
I agree with you.
I didn't know that arrangement was so complex. Who decided to put the horns there at that point? Oh, I didn't know there was actually horns. I didn't know there was a piano in that song.
Yeah.
And it's like, who put all this together?
You made a really good point. I mean, imagine listening to I Want to Hold Your Hand on a transistor radio.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You kind of hear the warm wholeness without it all being broken down for you.
And then listening to it now and my favourite way, even though I'm not wearing headphones now, and again, it goes back to my childhood, consuming music was with a set of closed ear headphones where you can hear every detail. And I love that. And there's some live recordings of the Stones from the 90s and a song like Gimme Shelter. And again, I'm not really an accomplished musician at all, but having learnt guitar with a set of headphones on this live version of Gimme Shelter, I don't know how much you know about the way that Ronnie Wood and Keith Richards play guitar, but you can hear Ronnie's guitar in your left ear and Keith's guitar in your right ear, and they complement each other. And it's fantastic. I love listening to that.
John, you're a terrific and interesting guest, and I think we could we could talk about
how long has this podcast got to go. We're going to cover a lot of territory.
Well, it's out the window now, man. That's not how I wanted it to go.
We can pull it back to the way that you do want it to go, Lee.
Sorry, Lee.
No, not at all. I was just about to say with the Beatles too. You said you played guitar, but in those days, and I've seen a video, you saw a guy in the studio with an anvil and a hammer.
Yeah, his Maxwell Silver hammer.
To go bang, boom.
Yeah.
I played with the Beatles. How's that?
Yeah.
Lee, well, you've made a few points there, John. You said when you were a young guy, 10 years younger than your sister, you would hear her playing her music and it had a great impact upon you. So that's a little hint about your upbringing. And you also mentioned that you grew up in Bundaberg.
I did.
So can you take us back to your beginnings there?
My dad, Sicilian, immigrant, came out to Australia in 1952. My mum, born to Sicilian parents, but born in Queensland, near Bundaberg. And Dad, worked in the railway for a short period of time in Sydney, but then landed in North Queensland on a sugarcane farm where they cut sugarcane by hand.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, places like, Halifax, near Ingham, Tully, those places. And then moved to Bundaberg and purchased a sugarcane farm when I was 1. So I think it was 1968. We moved to St John's Road. I don't know if you know Bundaberg at all, apart from Bundaberg Rum. But Bundaberg's very flat, with the exception of a place.
I've been there.
Yeah, the hummock. Apparently it's an extinct volcano. But otherwise, it's flat as a pancake, rich volcanic soil, and we lived very close to the hummock on St John's Road. Yeah, we moved to the farm, the sugarcane farm in 68. I was 1. And then, isn't it funny, your memory of your parents? And Dad he kind of semi-retired. He sold most of the farm in the early 80s. And then he kept 5 acres as a hobby farm, and he had mango trees, et cetera, et cetera. But isn't it funny when you're a kid and you think about what your parents did as a job? I would say, my dad was a sugarcane farmer. As long as I can, that was his thing. But in reality, he probably only had that farm for about 14, 15 years.
Long enough.
Long enough, but that's not his. That doesn't define him.
No, my next question would be, who were your parents to you? Were they beneficial to push you forward? Were they concerned about your well-being? Did they look after your best interest, or were they busy with the farm? I hope that you're enjoying the podcasts and the content that we're bringing to you each week. I want to take a moment to invite you to support the show. Your contributions help us continue creating high-quality episodes, bringing in exciting guests and exploring the topics you love. Every bit helps, whether it's a small donation or signing up for our Patreon account. By supporting us, you're not just helping keeping the lights on, you're becoming part of our community and helping us grow. To show our appreciation, we offer exclusive perks, behind-the-scenes content, and so much more for our supporters. So if you love what we do and you want to see us thrive, please consider signing up at buzzsprout.com/Don't Get Me Started. Support the show. Thank you for being part of our journey, and let's keep the conversation going.
I can only describe them as typical European parents, in that Dad was a hard worker outdoors all the time. Mum, you would describe her as a homemaker who loved, great cook. And my parents were both, I loved my childhood. I had a great childhood. Loving, supporting. However, at the same time, my mum more so than my dad would call me out if I was contemplating or doing something silly, like radio, for example. Because I was, believe it or not, it's because we're talking about kids off air. We've all got kids. I, believe it or not, was very introverted as a child. So I was very quiet. I didn't say much. When I expressed an interest in radio, I remember clearly my mum said, "Oh, why do you want to do something silly like that? You hardly talk."
What age were you when you...
Probably mid-teens.
Okay, yep.
But didn't get to do it until my early 20s, late teens.
So John, your parents would have, if I could say this, kind of the classic immigrants that came out to Australia after the war, basically came out with nothing. Correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Well, Mum was born here, but her parents were...
Oh, sorry, you said that, yes.
That was Sicilian. So my grandparents on my mum's side came out after the First World War.
But they worked very, very hard, and they took the opportunities that were before them, and they made something out of it. And I'm assuming that because they did make a success from, a hard start, if you like, they would have put in you the appreciation of working hard. And also, what about education? Did they say, look, you have an opportunity here to be educated, that's very important?
They want you to be an accountant or a doctor?
No.
Right.
They didn't put an emphasis on that?
No, not at all. And I feel very lucky because I was talking to some farmers and some producers. Farming's a tough business, irrespective of what cattle, crop, whatever. But I always remember my dad, and this would be the 70s and the early 80s, my dad always said to me, he said, don't end up on the farm.
Did he really?
He did.
But even though he made a success out of it.
Rolling in money bags. But my view on money and your definition of success is, everyone's definition of success is very different. My parents were always happy. I always saw, they never worried about money. We never worried about money. I don't worry about money today. But they had a large circle of friends. I remember that house in St. John's Road would constantly have people arriving for morning tea or night visits. Every Saturday night they played poker. There was a real
Italian background.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, Dad shared fruit and veggies that he grew on around the house. So, but no, and I wasn't very good academically.
That was my next question. How did you go in school?
So they didn't push you in that direction?
No, not at all.
So... And Dad said, don't end up on the farm.
Dad, they didn't give me much guidance other than don't end up on the farm and never pushed academically.
And you're a quiet guy, kind of an introvert, and you expressed a desire to go into the media where you have to push yourself forward and talk. So Mum said, you won't do it.
Don't be so silly.
Don't be so silly. You won't succeed. So how did it unfold from there?
I dropped out of school halfway through year 12 because this work ethic, Mully, true. I started working at the age of 15, and back then I would do Thursday nights and Saturday mornings at the local supermarket. I can remember my pay packet in 1982 was $3.17 an hour. Halfway through year 12, 1984, I was offered a full-time job at the supermarket, and really, I guess lack of, my grades weren't great. My parents didn't seem too worried about that, but my grades weren't great, and from memory, I have this feeling that Mum was almost like, oh, well, what else are you going to do? So I ended up working at the supermarket, and I did, they conned me into I say conned, I didn't mention the name, into this trainee manager thing where we would literally work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m, not allowed overtime. You talk about exploitation.
Yeah.
And every time you used to raise it with your grocery manager or someone, you go, hey, should we be putting a bit of overtime? And they go, oh, you want to be a store manager, don't you? Oh, yes, very much so. And I go, well, you've got to work and work and work. But anyway, I did that for a period of time. I wasn't overly happy doing that. But something that I'm trying to instill in my son is that, look, I say this because he's got a job at a fast food joint that he doesn't really love. But I said, my thing to him is you don't have to like every day that you do it, but you've got to like the things that it gives you. Because if there's a shoe with a Nike tick on it, or a shirt with Michael Jordan, that's what he spends his money on.
Into it.
So that was my philosophy while I was working at the supermarket.
So how long did that last before you decided it wasn't for you?
Okay, I had in Queensland, and we certainly didn't have access to it in Bundaberg, being 4 hours from Brisbane. But in 1980, it was kind of revolutionary in Australia because FM radio came to Australia. And there was a big brand, a big player in FM radio in 1980 in Brisbane was a station called FM 104. And it ruled the roost for a decade. Now, obviously, I couldn't hear it in Bundaberg, but I remember getting cassette tapes of the station. I would listen to these cassette tapes and it was something about, maybe it was partially Mully because of my love of music but that's what I wanted to do. But I had no idea how to go about it. So I remember I wrote a letter, or typed up a letter on my typewriter, and I sent it off to the general manager of the local radio station 4BU. And again, I remember during my lunch break from the supermarket, I had a meeting with the general manager. Again, I was very quiet and very introverted. Do you know what he said? I always remember these words. He said, John, I would go back and do whatever it is you're doing to the very best of your ability because you are never going to get into radio.
Wow.
Yeah.
Get out.
But
but however, he gave me the address of a radio course in Brisbane, and I probably walked very quietly and sheepishly out of his office. But I did write away to this course. I don't even know if it's still going today. It's called Air TV. And I got accepted, I think, in 1989. And it was one night a week. And that was basically... And I guess, I don't know, it's about hours behind the mic, isn't it? But I find it very easy to... Once I got into radio...
So how did you?
Well, I did the radio course for most of 1989. And then community radio used to be your foot in. So I volunteered at 4OUR Caboolture. I was living in Taringa. I would drive from Taringa and they gave me like the mid-dawn shift. So here I was on community radio in Caboolture doing like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., you know. But it allowed me to get my first cassette. Back then it was about get an air check. Is that still a common term? An air check? You'd send a tape of your work away to commercial radio and then they would hire you off how good or, you know, you were on that cassette. So volunteering at the community station, my sister, who I spoke about earlier, she married a guy and moved to Innisfail. Do you know where Innisfail is? Yeah. And I remember it was coming to the end of 1989 and she said, John, they're advertising on the radio up here. They're looking for casual radio announcers. So I sent my cassette from my community station away and I got that job.
So that was your first commercial radio gig?
Yes, 4KZ Innisfail.
How long were you there for?
Well, my plan was always 3 years in the country and then I wanted to get to Metro. So I was at 4KZ for 14 months, I think. My second stop, I moved back home. I got back to 4BU. That general manager had long gone by then, by the way.
Yeah. Back home is where?
Bundy, 4BU. So I ended up working back home again and living with mum and dad. Because remember, I got on really, I loved my parents. And after having been away from home for a couple of years, there was nothing better than, you know, that shirt before it hit the ground. It was picked up, laundered, ironed, and hung back up in the in the wardrobe. Home cooked meals again, you know.
Italian too.
Yeah, I never had, an issue with, I loved my parents and I loved how, having been away, I guess it was an appreciation, wasn't it?
It's a precious thing.
Yes,
you appreciate.
You see things differently.
I'm not having to prepare my own meals. I'm not doing my own laundry. I'm not ironing my own shirt. Mum's doing, I find now as a parent, you know, my wife Deb says, well, that's your love language. You like doing things for your kids and for others. I said, yeah, I do. I like cooking. I like prepping things. I like for other people. I don't know.
Which I've seen you do.
Well, you do that again. And I think Deb and I'm not saying, as parents, you always have to be on the same page with a lot of things. But I think you raise, and you guys can tell me your kids are older, you raise your kids the way you were raised. I mean, because you've got no other... You've got no other...
No, you've got to know the story between us. We're very similar.
Yeah.
I was youngest of 8, so it was a different
Okay, I see. Okay, I get that, because the dynamics in that household would have been very different.
Suffice to say that we didn't have input.
Into, what are you talking about?
From our parents, we didn't get warmth, attention.
Oh, what?
Guidance,
because your family was
communication. My father, who I lived with for 21 years, didn't speak. I did not have a conversation with my father.
Now I'm going to interview you. I feel like.
Yes.
Is that for what reason? Was it
because
he wasn't a great dad, or what?
He was a good man who had a good heart, but he was one of 5, and he was given away when he was quite young.
Okay.
His parents were party animals and a mess. They just had 5 children, didn't know how to handle them. No money, couldn't be bothered. He was dyslexic and left-handed. Each year he'd have a different teacher, and one teacher would tie his left hand behind the chair and say, you have to read.
That was the way. Yeah, I know.
Write with your right hand. He left, so his education was almost non-existent. He left school at 12 to work on Auntie Rita's farm. So he was illiterate. He couldn't read or write. So I don't think he had much self-esteem, but he did one good move. He married a very good-looking daughter from one of the best, richest families in the town. So it was a step up from with nothing and nowhere into something substantial. But he didn't have any skills within himself to be somebody who could guide children or speak into children, because he had not experienced that himself. So,
But that makes sense. That's my blinkered vision of, there was only 2, I only had another sibling.
You and your sister, yeah.
So that's interesting, because when you said that, Lee, that's true. I never accounted for when you're part of a big family,
And Lee's story is that the parents were tired.
They've given up.
He was number 8, so they neglected him.
But I get that, and I'd never really... Isn't that, you learn something every day? I've never really considered that when you have such a big family, if you're the 8th, you probably are neglected. So
neglected in a way where I had freedom, which I loved.
Oh, yeah.
I was left alone to do things. There wasn't any warmth there. There wasn't there's not even a good morning.
Yeah.
How was your day?
Yeah.
What did you do? There's things I wanted to do and go. But anyway, this isn't about me. It's about you, John. I want to get back onto you.
Pick your brain.
Because when you started this journey into the radio, did you model yourself on a particular person? Did you have somebody?
Not one person in particular, but I loved Remember those cassettes I was getting from Brisbane? I loved listening to those announcers. And I thought that job, there was a morning guy on there who did, 9 till 12. I didn't want to get too early. I didn't want to get out of bed at 4.
Yeah,
but I thought,
who does?
I thought he's got the best gig. I want to do that. And it took me a while to get to FM 104 or Triple M.
Oh, you got there.
Yeah, in the end. It was one of the last commercial radio stations I got to. But before that, I ended up in Melbourne for 7 years. I ended up at a much bigger radio market, and I loved Melbourne. But in the back of my mind, there was always I always had goals of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I had on the bedroom wall, I had like a grid, and I had all the stations that I wanted to work at across the top, all the names of the contacts down the left. And every time I sent, no email, no MP3. Every time I sent a handwritten or typed letter and a cassette, I would put it in the grid, and then I would
tick it off.
Yeah, I'd tick it off, and then if I got a response back, I would. So my ultimate, I wanted to get to Melbourne, because I don't know why Melbourne, because I'd never set foot in Melbourne ever. But I knew it was, at that stage, it was the second largest radio market in Australia. So I had a desire to get there. And even though I never had the Brisbane FM 104 on there, I'm a great believer in your brain. If you focus on something long enough, you don't have to write it down. Well, I mean, writing it down helps. But I'm a great believer that your brain subconsciously works towards a goal. Even coming to the coast, there's so many things that just happened organically. But in my mind, there were always places I wanted to end up.
Well,
that's where I wanted to go.
In my mind, you've got that on your wall. On my wall, I had Blondie, Susie and the Banshees, and Wendy James.
Oh, Wendy James, there's a blast from the past.
Now she's in Australia.
Transvision van.
Yeah, she's doing it again. She was incredible.
She was
Have you seen her today?
No, I haven't seen her today, but I remember what she looked like back in the
She was DJing for a while. Anyway, she's doing a tour to Australia, and I'm very tempted to go and have a look. I loved Wendy James.
Oh, for a teenage boy, Transvision, she was...
So compliments to you that you had a plan. I didn't. You did. But talking about beautiful women, how did you meet Deb?
How did I meet Deb? We met at the Noosa Surf Club. I'd been out doing some radio promotion, and she was there one night. We went together. She was there, probably preoccupied with an Irish backpacker, I think.
Oh, really?
Was the story that she tells.
And you stole her away from the backpacker.
No, not that night. It was a fair bit of work, Mully.
But the charm kicked in immediately to get her attention.
One of the things that happened, I must have got her number. I can't remember how I got her number, but
charm.
She was
the good look.
She was working for a property developer, and she would go away on a lot of junkets. And, for guys, it's very nervous calling someone up, a girl up, and asking her out on a date. And Deb was at the Indy 500. You remember when the Indy 500 was on the Gold Coast? And the Yanks would come out and race around there. And she was there. And I called her while she was in somewhere loud. And I was like, and again, I was still nervous. And I was like, blah, small talk. Do you want to go out sometime? And it was like, she was like, what?
Yeah, where are you?
I was like, how many times? I said, I was wondering how many times do I have to ask the same question already, And anyway, but that's how I met her. And eventually she said, so I think I got through. She said, yeah.
So hang on, there's a big gap here. So you're talking about your radio experience in Melbourne, and all of a sudden you jumped up to Noosa.
Oh, yeah.
So can you fill that gap in for us? How did you
I can give you
here?
like a chronological order of radio stations. So I did 3 years in the country, Innisfail, Bundaberg, Albury. Mm-hmm. When I just got the Albury job at 2AY. Again, part of this game, networking, I didn't know that was called networking back then, is about, always hassling radio bosses. And I was always, when I was still in Bundaberg at 4BU, I was hassling the boss of Fox FM in Melbourne. And I remember, I think I had just been offered the job at 2AY Albury on the Victoria-New South Wales border. I think at the same time I got offered the job at Melbourne. But I'm very, again, maybe it's from my parents, I'm very loyal and I don't like to screw people over. So I took the job in Albury. I said to this guy in Melbourne, I said, but look, I want to do the right thing. I went to Albury for 8 months. So that's, and enjoyed my time in Albury. And then 8 months after Albury, I got the job in Melbourne. I was there for 7 years, fell in love with Melbourne. I loved its multiculturalism. I made friends, other Sicilian friends that I'm still friends with today. He was my best man. I loved the events, the sporting events. I just loved living there. So, and oddly enough, for a small kid, for a kid from a small town, I felt, even though my parents had their tribe, their other that play poker and all that sort of stuff, I felt like my tribe was in Melbourne. Like my friend Richie would take me to a deli in Carlton, and I remember, I don't know, it was in this deli full of processed salamis and cheeses, and I was like, oh, this is great. How good is this? I was thinking
But there's a massive Italian community.
Well, massive Greek, yes, massive Greek and Italian, but very multicultural. So I fell in love with Melbourne. And then Melbourne, again, it was one of those things, Mully, where in my mind, I didn't have a clear goal. I had this image of being by the ocean, whether it was the Gold Coast or the sunny coast, it didn't really matter. I'm not a surfer, but I love swimming in the ocean. I love it. I want to be always by the ocean because it's one of those little things that brings me great happiness and joy. And for some weird... trying to think how that trend. So I was in Melbourne and I got offered a job here on the sunny coast at CFM. Took it. That was January of 2000, and I rented a place at Marcoola, right next to Felix Parry Park, right next to the Marcoola Surf Club. I don't know if you know Melbourne at all, but I lived in the George on Fitzroy Street, which was above a couple of bars. W-class trams would start at 5:30 in the morning. And as much as I loved that, my first night at Marcoola, which was summer because it was Jan of 2000, I had the door open. I remember going to sleep with the sound of the ocean and someone above had a wind chime. And I remember lying in bed listening to... Yeah, I just fell in love. I was like, this is it. This is like amazing.
How old are you when you came up?
Ooh, 32.
Oh, 30. Just at that right time.
Yeah. I loved it. I fell in love with it.
But that's amazing, you're in the city, you're right in the city, you're above commercial venues.
Yeah, it was the snake pit.
It's the rat race in full flight, and you loved it. And then you come up here to the coast where basically all you can hear is silence. It's like it didn't drive you mad.
But no, it's, you know what? I often have these conversations. I love, and I still do to this day, I love big urban cities. And I love we were only in Melbourne the other day for the Hawks Lions game, and we're planning a trip back in September, hopefully. It's a tale of two cities. I think you can have both because you can enjoy the buzz of an urban setting, and then yet when you're sitting on the beach, you can think nothing's better than this. I think you can have both. You don't agree, Molly? No?
No, because
you can have your feet in both
you
camps.
can have your feet in both. Well, you can get a hit of that. Yeah, and then come and, have a swim in the ocean here. And I think that's...
Well, maybe I'm spoilt because I grew up on the coast with my feet in the ocean. And
you were spoilt, and you still are spoilt.
Yeah, I'm a lifetime surfer, right?
Yes.
But I spent 10 years in Hong Kong, similar to your experience in Melbourne, right in the heart of the beast, above bars in Soho.
You didn't like it?
Loved it.
Oh, there you go.
Loved it. Yeah. And I would still be there if I didn't have...
They didn't chase you out.
Family and property here. This is my home. This is my home.
But when you go to a big city, whether it's Brisbane or you go to Sydney or whatever, or Melbourne for a footy game, do you not get energised by the...
Absolutely. I love it. I love rat races.
But then don't you have a moment, because we were in Chinatown after that Hawks game a couple of months ago, and we were out, and my kid loves it too. I think he's a real urban kid. We'd had a great feed in Chinatown. It's midnight and the streets are pumping. Don't you go, oh, wouldn't it be good to live back here? But then if you move there, you probably go,
No, I could do it easily.
What am I doing here?
I could do it easily. No, well, see, I found my tribe in Hong Kong. A whole lot of people there that I mix with. Hong Kong has little communities, like circles within circles within circles. And I was very fortunate to be able to go into about 4 or 5 different circles. So I was mixing with the surfers, I was mixing with the poets and the artists, the filmmakers, the painted poets, the deadheads.
You have a great palette.
It was amazing.
You have your interest in a lot of. I think I like to think I'm expert in none, but I like to have a wide variety.
Well, Lee and I take pride in that
of interest
because a lot of people say to us, "Well, how can you guys have a podcast?
What do you specialise in?"
Yeah, we're not experts.
Well, why have one when you can have 4?
Yeah, and we say this often because we put out one podcast. Don't get me started every week. And we say on that, and we discuss whatever we want to. It might be, for example, anything that's topical. We don't go into the political. We go into topical things that the average person is interested in. For example, off the top of my head, can you be in love with the same person, with 2 people at the same time? So we'll discuss that. Now, we're not psychologists. We don't know all the little intricacies of how that works inside a person's chemistry. So we tell people we're not experts. We say we're amateurs, or we've just come across a new word. We're polymaths, which means you've got a little bit of interest in everything. And that gives us license to do what we do.
I love it. And getting back, John, 32, you arrive on the Sunshine Coast, you started CFM. How did that work for you?
I loved it. I loved all things about radio when I was in it. And we might get onto this later on, but I find radio now is, and it's part of it's the digital interruption with radio. No, I loved it.
You mean radio today when you say radio now?
Oh, today,
That's not a station.
No.
Generally.
The general state of radio, like print, it's heading in the same way as print because of digital interruption. I was doing breakfast. I ended up doing breakfast on C for 7 straight years. I loved it so much. I didn't have a sick day in 7 years.
Wow, pretty good.
I absolutely, and very naive. I was seeing a girl that followed me up from Melbourne. She came here. We were together. She never travelled. She wanted to travel. And she said, I want to travel the world. And I said, that's great. And she said, do you want to come with me? And I was so naive at that stage. I was like, with the radio thing, I remember saying to her, and I would never hold anyone back. I said, you go, knock yourself out. I said, this radio gig is never going to end. Can't believe I would say,
And I'm not going anywhere.
And I'm not going anywhere. Life change is inevitable, right? But Jodie went overseas, and good on her. She's been in the UK now for 20 years.
Still friends?
Oh, just on Facebook.
Okay.
We don't communicate. But what I'm saying is at that time, think back, 20 odd years ago, she says, you want to come with me and travel? And even though I love, and that's certainly for my next chapter of life, I want to travel more. But at that stage, I loved that radio gig so much. I was like, no, I said, I'll come and see. And we caught up. We caught up in Italy, we caught up overseas and that. But I said, no way. I said, this is never going to end. I love this gig. So I did. I loved radio. I loved doing it. And then from there, in 2007, I went to Triple M in Brisbane, which was FM 104. Yeah.
Did you meet Deb, your wife, when you were still in radio?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. I had been, so 03, 04.
Where were you stationed?
CFM.
So you were living on the coast?
Yeah, I was still at Marcoola.
Oh, were you?
Next to the surf club.
And Deb was living where?
She was Pelican Waters down the other end of the coast. That was a long drive to catch up. I tell you that much.
Well, it was
worth it.
How did the two of you? How did the two of you meet in the top end of the northern end of the coast in Noosa then?
Deb was working for a developer and based in Maroochydore, and I think that weekend she had some friends up from Brisbane. And they were, out partying and doing that kind of stuff. But a funny story, Maxie was in the van doing magazine deliveries with me recently, and I had to go down to Pelican Waters, which is a fair hike in the van. I remember driving. And I said to Max, Mum used to live down here at Pelican Waters. I said, it was a long drive, I tell you, catching up with her. And Max, he's got such a dry sense of humour. He just looked out the window. He said, yeah, I get chicks to come to me.
The things we learn in our middle and late age.
I said, well, good on you. It's true, actually. When you break it down, and he would say, I'm going down to the beach to meet so-and-so. I'm going across to the shopping centre to meet so-and-so. I don't know how he does, but he does.
How genius.
They hop buses.
Yeah, our sons are bits of lad, if I could put it that way, and they play the same gig, don't they?
Oh, for sure. They lived the life that I wanted to. Because I got married very early and had children very early. But when I see mine, I just go enjoy and have fun with it.
Oh, absolutely.
And they have.
So
I agree.
Now, John, let's just jump ahead here. Otherwise, we'll be talking for hours, which I don't mind. This is really, really wonderful.
Who's going to edit this? Are you going to edit it?
Now, here we
It's
are.
going to be a joy, John.
Here we are in 2025.
Yeah.
And yourself and Deb, your wife, are the family to push behind some lifestyle magazines that go out right across Noosa and further across the Sunshine Coast, but predominantly centred in Noosa. So let's jump ahead now from your radio days and from meeting Deb to where the magazines are in Noosa and how all that came about, and a little bit more background of that, please.
Well, the other title is Hello Sunshine, and straight off the bat, I can't take credit for the magazines. It's all Deb's hard work. And in fact, she's on deadline now. And I think she did an all-nighter last night and came to bed about 3 or 4 this morning. I was at the ABC in 2014 or maybe 2013.
Here on the coast?
Yeah. I was
Sunshine Coast.
the regional, I can't even remember what the change titles all the time in the public service, the content manager of ABC Sunshine Coast. Deb had worked, her background's journalism. She's the one that's gone to uni, not me. She had a background degree in journalism. She'd been the editor for another magazine, the Noosa Weekender. I think maybe 20 odd years ago. And she had a desire to always start a publication. I was still in radio 2013. Digital disruption really hadn't happened much to radio at that stage, but certainly had disrupted newsprint. And when she flagged it, you know, she said, I want to launch my own magazine. And I said, print's dead. I said, forget it. And she said, no. She said, newsprint is dead. But she had a clear vision of what she wanted to achieve and what she wanted to do. She wanted to tell real stories. She wanted to really kind of bring the Noosa community together. She saw something in the DNA of the community. And Noosa is a community as opposed to the rest of the coast, which is geographically quite stretched out. Something exists in Noosa that doesn't exist in the other end of the coast, mainly because of its shape and it's the way it's stretched out.
I think pride in itself.
Yeah. And also, you know, the de-amalgamation from the general council, you know, the big council that was formed many moons ago. And I guess I loved her vision. She said, I wanted recyclable stock. It's not going to be a glossy magazine. It's going to be recyclable stock. So we pay more for that from the printer. And I guess when you have a vision, you've got to do it, win, lose or draw, because otherwise you'll die wondering. So to her credit, yeah. And so In Noosa celebrated its 10th anniversary last year. And 5 years ago, we launched the second title, Hello Sunshine, which basically covers the other end of the coast.
That's very, very bold, because I would have been thinking like you that magazines and print is on the way out because people are not reading and people are more and more now engrossed with their small screens. But these two magazines have thrived and they're still here.
They have longevity, Mully. They have recipes in them.
Yes, which is?
From Matt Galinsky. So there are usually 4 seasonal recipes in every edition.
Haven't you read one, Keith?
I have.
I've got one here just for you. No.
Yeah. When you say recipes...
It's not a recipe book. The reason, like when we talk to a brand or a business that wants to advertise, newsprint, the cycle of news, why newsprint has died is because the cycle of news has accelerated immensely because of platform, because of your phone. So buying, you know, waiting for that paper to come out the next day, that news is old and tired. Whereas this magazine, like the recipes are just one part of it. It's a lifestyle magazine. It covers food, it covers fashion, it covers a lot of things, real estate. The idea with the magazine is that if you have a business or a brand that's in that magazine, it tends to sit on people's shelves or coffee table for a long time. It's not read today and bottom of the birdcage the next day. There's a longevity in the magazine that's of importance to clients that advertise because the brand is around for a long time. And I've walked into many clients who've got, you know, magazines from 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago still on the shelf. So it has a longevity. The model is again, all Deb's work. It's not my work. And the way you run that business, she does the pagination where you have to have a yield for each page. And you can go up or down, I might have this wrong, but you go up or down by 4 pages. Right, so you always keep an eye on your costs and your modelling, your print costs. So it's actually quite a good business model.
Well, absolutely is a business, really, isn't it? And because it's not only a magazine that has that content that you talked about, it's aesthetically pleasing. It has a nice tactile feel.
Yeah. A lot of people say that.
There's a style to it, you know. And I think the papers that you use,
is recyclable stock,
but there's a feel to that.
It's not coated.
Yeah, there's a feel to that as well.
Now, you're saying that it's Deb's brainchild and she's behind it, but you also contribute to it.
Look, I write...
You're a writer.
I do write. Yeah, I do write some stories.
There's a couple I've liked. I like
Only a couple.
the balcony garden one, which I found really cool.
Yeah,
and I love the retirement one you did.
Oh, I've done a couple for Keaton is one of our clients in Sunrise Village.
And we had a chat
Look,
before.
Lee's read them. He's good.
I do my research, right? So when we were talking last time and we were saying, oh, John, you know, what are you doing this and this and this? And what about retirement? You go, oh, no. And I read that. And the bit at the end, you said it was the R word, retirement.
Did I? Because I thought the brief for one of those clients was we weren't going to mention the R word. Did I?
And so you said, it goes, retirement. Maybe it's not the end of the road. And you put rock on into retirement. Do you still feel that way, John?
Oh, absolutely. I talk a lot because I'm of that age, and it's surreal, to be talking to your accountant and your financial planner about getting your hands on your superannuation, because for me it just seems surreal. But I'm very close. And when I talk about, so that's why I probably use that word from time to time, but I want to be really clear. When I use the word retirement, because I was talking about, the Rolling Stones and longevity and being physical and having physicality, and I'm getting old, I've lost my train of thought. But what I was saying is, I don't mean retirement sitting in a recliner.
No, I know. Yeah.
I mean retirement as in enjoying doing the things you want to do.
That's right. It's coming. That's the thing.
Yeah,
but
enjoy. Well, another thing that I do contribute to the magazine business is I love doing the delivery. And again, I love doing them because I load the van up and I fill the stands.
Is that kind of like I'm really surprised to hear that.
Which bit?
That you love doing the deliveries.
Why?
Well, because it's so, if I could put it simply, it's simple. When you're creating the magazine, and I'm assuming that you're working with Deb, in partnership, and I've got this article, I've been profiling this person, I've written about this, what about that? You'd be discussing all of the content and how it should go.
That's not how it works, Molly. She tells me what stories to write.
But you're still involved, right?
I did tell you.
Yeah. She's the boss.
And then all of a sudden, it's finished.
Yeah.
All the angst and then the concerns that go with all of that, and all the working and checking everything. And all of a sudden, you just hop in the van and you drive in and just throw it out the window, right? Seems to be.
No, there's this.
Is that
it's not like that, Kev.
Is that like going
Throw it out the window. I'll break a window if I throw it 180 pages out.
I missed the lawn. I hit Mrs. Smith
Yeah.
out on the morning walk. Sorry, love. Is it like a kind of a chill out time?
No, it's purpose. It's purpose. And I even, if we ever move on from the magazine, I know I've said this, again, it comes back to this R word, this retirement. I don't want to, have you been into Dan Murphy's lately? It's full of like people our age and they've got the biggest smiles on their faces. And I think, I don't know who's come up with this saying. It's like, when you move from a job that might be stressful, you're getting calls from your employees out of hours. You've got to cover someone that's not turning up because they're crook. It's that all care and no responsibility. Now, I've got a list of a couple of friends of ours who've gone from corporate jobs to working at Bunnings, to being a greenskeeper on a golf course, to working at Dan Murphy's, that's what I want to do. So for me, I've got a purpose today. It's delivering magazines. But if and when we move on from that, I still want to, I don't care if I go pack shelves I'm full circle, go pack shelves at the supermarket or work at Dan's or Bunnings.
Now,
it doesn't
you
worry
also
me.
MC as well.
Oh, yeah, but I don't get much out of that, Lee. No, what I love, it all depends what kind of emceeing it is. I love this, where it's a Q&A, where you're using a degree of skill to extract information from someone. But I've been to a lot of MC gigs where you just, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Let's get the housekeeping out the way. The toilets are over here. If you're a smoker, you can go over there. Please put your hands together for our first act. Walk off the stage. There's nothing rewarding about that at all.
Well, let's get on to your other passion.
Molly's got a question.
Go, Mully.
I just love what you said there. You love the Q&A and you love extracting information out of people.
Are you about to say how are we doing?
No, I'm about to say the other thing the other aspect of what you and Deb are doing under the guise of your magazine umbrella. You run podcast yourself, which is called Every Person.
Everyone has a story.
Everyone has a story, and I believe you've done about 200 interviews.
Yeah, there's about that many.
Right. So tell me about that. Well, the first thing that comes off the top of my head is who has been the most interesting?
First of all, this idea of talking to everyday people is not mine or new. There used to be a show on SBS many moons ago called, I think it was called Front Up. And it was hosted by a guy called Andrew L. Urban, who would...
Did he go out on the street with a
out
microphone?
on the streets with a mic?
Yeah, I remember.
Do you remember that?
Yep.
And I thought it was brilliant. And he would walk up to everyday people, and I loved his skill. He had the ability to extract great stories out of everyday people, and then obviously it's edited up into a package and it was shown on SBS. When I got to the ABC, I loved that idea so much that I wanted to do it as some content at the ABC, and we had a great producer who was very talented at doing similar. Her name was Kylie Bartholomew, and we called it Down on the Corner, and she did that, and she went out with the mic, she would interview people, and we got, again, this is what I love, you scratch the surface. We got the most amazing people. We got grandparents whose grandkids were competing in the National Frisbee competition in Finland. Zealand, or a Fijian conman that was on the run that didn't want to be named, or, just remarkable stories. And so I've always loved this idea. And again, being based here on the sunny coast, and I've interviewed celebrities from Sting to
have you?
Oh, lots of people who,
How did you find Sting?
Boring. Boring is batshit.
He's
Sorry,
been
Gordon.
sued.
Yeah, he's
big
by his
time
other
in
mates.
the
Yeah. Oh, interesting thing about Sting. You know his drummer, Copeland. His father was a spy with MI6.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, and he was stationed in Beirut and he knew Kim Philby. And he was right at the cutting edge of international intelligence when the Cold War was raging. So Stuart Copeland, I think his name is, a drummer.
Yes.
His old man.
But he's American.
He's American, yeah.
Yeah, his old man was a spy stationed in Beirut.
Yeah, right.
He would have worked with the CIA, being American, but he had to work with the English Secret Service.
Yeah.
So where did you interview Sting?
You should have interviewed.
Oh, Sting, look, he's forgetful.
You should have interviewed the drummer.
I interviewed Andy Sumner, actually, the guitarist, on another occasion. Gillian Anderson at the time, she was massive with X-Files.
How was she?
I was in Melbourne.
That's Keith's favourite.
Who? Gillian Anderson.
Yeah.
She was boring too. She came in the studio. I remember she chewing gum, staring at the ceiling.
Are they up for themselves? Some of these,
a lot of them are. Can I tell you who the most? And I was a massive Kiss fan when I was a kid.
Gene.
I interviewed Gene Simmons. He signed 2 of my vinyl albums in '95, the debut Kiss album and Kiss Alive. And he's polarizing individual, but he understands the business of show. And so he will give you a great interview. And another thing that we would do when you finished interviewing celebrities, remember David Copperfield, the magician?
Yes,
he was massive. I interviewed him when he was dating at one period there, Claudia
Schiffner, yeah.
I can only remember her nickname.
Yeah.
They used to call her Claudia Shit for Brains.
I can only remember what she looked like.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you said that, I thought, the lucky duck.
She's still beautiful.
Yeah, probably. But I remember when you would go out representing the radio station, after the interview, you'd normally give them a heap of station tags. And that is where they would say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and you're listening to 1019 The Fox." Now, a lot of people, Barry White, for example, I remember I interviewed Barry White at the Hilton. I remember giving him this piece of paper with these station IDs on them. And he looked at the paper like I'd given him a bag of dog shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like as if he was like, I've got better things to do with my time. Whereas Gene Simmons understands that if I record these, "Hi, I'm Gene Simmons from Kiss and you're listening to The Fox," he knows that if he records them and does them well, they're going to get played on the radio station. And I remember we'd done the interview, he signed my albums, I gave him these tags to record, and someone in the background was making some noise or whatever it was, and he stopped and he turned around and he said, "Can you keep it down? I'm trying to record these things."
Very smart businessman.
Very smart.
He is. I watched a big doco on him. Incredibly smart.
Incredibly smart, and I was going to say moral compass. I want to say moral compass because I know.
Oh, he got up to no good.
He got up to no good. But what I love about him, he's got a great story. I don't know if you've...
Yeah.
Because his mum was a Holocaust survivor. Came out, she was locked up. All of his relatives on that Jewish-Hungarian side perished in the Second World War. His mum escaped. And he tells this amazing story. He couldn't speak English when they arrived in New York City. He tells this, it brings tears to his eyes. He tells this amazing story where I think when you arrived in New York City as an immigrant, you had to place your hand on the Bible and raise the other hand as they accepted you into the USA.
I think they had to do that in Ellis Island as they came through.
Yeah. Anyway, when they asked, and he tells this story because he was only a kid, when they asked his mum to raise her hand, she was trained to put it up into like a zig hail.
Yeah.
And he
And of
said,
course, she's Jewish.
Gene told the story of this kind, whoever he was, customs immigrant, who grabbed her hand really gently and put it down. And he said to her, "You'll never have to do that again."
Oh, isn't that crazy?
Beautiful. Yeah.
And so his drive, as crazy and as wild as his life was that he never wanted to disappoint his mum. He thought, she's been through so much that he never did drugs, drank, smoked. No, he's
I know.
He's never done any of that stuff.
But he ended up in a rock and roll band called Kiss, Knights in Satan's Service.
But that's bogus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But
That's a rumour.
I know it is, but they didn't look like wholesome, kids next door, did they? They looked like demons.
No, absolutely. But that's, again, look, that happened with Elvis, that happened with the Beatles.
Yeah, but not as extreme as Kiss. Now, how did he reconcile that image Which I don't think they downplayed.
Well, I'm not speaking. I feel like I'm not speaking on his behalf, but he's a horror movie fanatic and graphic comic fanatic, and like a lot of things, he would play that role as a character.
Well, that's amazing to me because, you're painting a picture of a child who loves his mother, will do everything to please his mother. His mother would be super sensitive to violence because she's lived through it.
But what part of his act was violent?
The image.
But
they look like demons. Plus, you're saying he loved horror movies.
Well, he was a Lon Chaney fan. Like these old black and white films.
Why didn't he love wholesome Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck?
Well, I think from a brand point of view, he has great respect for Disney. But Mully, listen. This is a really good conversation about where does art and real life blur. Now, why is it that, for example, Tarantino can produce a film where in the script one of the characters, it's riddled with the N-word portrayed onto a screen, and people go, well, that's art, that's an artistic expression. But a musician, if they write a song, suddenly they're like, but that song's him. It's like, no, I think the writing or the composition of a song and the writing of a film script are exactly the same. It's an artistic expression. There's a conversation going around now, which you may, and I'm not a Snoop Dogg fan, but Snoop Dogg's he's going to perform at the AFL Grand Final.
Yes.
Right? Now, there's something, there was a bit of controversy recently around Isaac Rankin and homophobic slur. And then, your social media blows up with, well, hasn't Snoop Dogg sung songs where he's said homophobic things in songs? I don't know because I'm not a Snoop Dogg fan.
Keith will tell you.
Has he?
What he's come out and said, yes, that's a fair criticism.
Who? Snoop Dogg?
Snoop said that. He said, that is true. I did, but that is in the past. He said, I've moved on. He said, I've learnt that is inappropriate.
Oh, okay.
He said, I've grown up. He said, I have children, I have family. He said, so that's not who I am.
Well, I'm not a big Snoop Dogg fan. I didn't know that. But again, I would defend that on the lines of it's artistic expression.
Yeah, but you said, yes, I get that point that you're making, John, but you have to be so careful in today's society.
Yeah, because lines are blurred.
Yeah, well, not only that, there's such an emphasis on things being correct, and if you say certain things or infer certain things. See, sometimes when Lee and I are talking about, gay men, which, well, we don't talk about it at all. But if the conversation comes up, I'll say, well, like when I was a kid, they were called pufters. And Lee goes, you can't say pufters anymore. You can't say
I didn't say that.
I don't think you can.
I just said you've got to stop saying that.
You've got to probably stop saying them.
Well, so probably got to.
Well,
that's the point
it's not something I would say.
Yeah. That's the point I'm making, that you can put something out in image. Now, I'm not putting down gay men and homosexual men at all. I'm just saying that was a word that I grew up with when others referred to them. I'm saying in a society where a little slip-up that's not acceptable is jumped on, it can cause you a lot of, backlash.
Well, it's the same as gay. Gay isn't associated with homosexuals. Gay is to be happy, be free, to be gay. And then they've taken that word and transformed it to be gay. But Snoop Dogg, he was in the Olympics. I
don't know because I don't know.
Oh, gee, Keith and I had a real good talk about that.
Yeah, right.
He was getting paid, something like $500,000 a day just to be Snoop.
Yeah.
But another good example of this, where this, remember when Eminem first came up out on the scene? This is a long time ago. Now, again, I'm not a big fan, so I don't know these things intimately, but I am an Elton John fan. And so people were like, oh, well, Eminem, homophobic lyrics. And yet one of the breakthrough performances was when he performed one of his biggest songs with Elton John at the Grammys. And they admire it, and Elton certainly had a lot of admiration for, as a gay man, a lot of admiration for Eminem. So I think there's an artistic endeavour can and should be separated from real life. If you write a book, if you paint a picture, if you write a script, I have a very clear kind of understanding. I can separate the artist from the content.
Maybe should and reality are two different things, and maybe you can separate that because of your because of your background. But the average punter, there's a lot of them. Lee and I have got an extensive history of working in the building industry. You don't get too many people who can appreciate the finer points of culture and how it applies to real life and art. That so-and-so, you get a lot of...
Well, my biggest gripe with the news cycle these days is people don't understand the definition between fact and opinion.
Me too.
Good point.
So a lot of talk radio stations, in fact, all talk radio commercial talk radio stations, give the opinion.
Well, see,
And people think it's fact.
That's an industry. You know, you
yeah.
go onto the podcast world or the echo chambers on the internet. You know, they're all what I call professional opinion givers.
Of course.
And
of course.
There's too much misinformation, disinformation that people take as fact.
And we've got this thing called echo chambers now. And, you know, I love geopolitics. You know, I love it. And
Don't get him started.
I look right across the board. And I have my echo chambers, which I love. And, of course, the thing is about loving your own personal echo chambers, they reinforce what you love.
In a bubble.
Yeah, so when I go over to the other side, I think I've got to listen to what they're saying over there. You know, I find myself either switching the bloody thing off, or if I'm watching a certain television channel, I end up, well, I'm actually swearing at nearly all of them at the moment.
Well, I'm like a pendulum with a lot of that. Having worked at the ABC, I'm a big, things have got to be attributable, things have got to be qualified, things have got to have the weight of scientific evidence. And then I'll listen to well-fed white bloke on opinion radio giving his, and the problem is that people mistake that for fact when it's not. But I swing between, I think, because now with AI, right, deep fakes, photos that are photoshopped, et cetera, I swing between wanting things to be factual and then go, but you know what? Maybe it's good that there's such ludicrous content out there, because my hope is that people will do their own investigation on stuff.
Well, see, hope again is, I would hope that hope wins. But I look at the world and, you know, my wife reckons I'm a black crow. And I just say, no. I said, that's bloody reality. Should and reality, I think are two different things. Should be done, of course, but seldom is.
Yeah, but don't you think, again, and this, I'm coming back to this AI-generated, just before the last US election, there was and it was clearly an AI thing, there was a video, and it had Trump, Biden, Obama, Clinton, and they were in a bar. And I think Clinton was playing the sax and Obama was slapping the bass, and I think Trump might have been Biden was on the piano. Now, it looked fantastic. I mean, you could tell it was right, but it looked fantastic. So you looked at it and went, you'd have to go, oh, that's not real. Hopefully your antenna goes, that's AI. And when I say I swing like a pendulum between why can't things be factual to, look, I hope there's so much bullshit out there that it drives people to go, hang on a minute, is what I just read true?
No, yeah, but John, I don't see too many people that are actually doing that. You know, I'm hearing people say, oh, look, I heard it on Facebook.
Oh, yeah, please don't. I talk to tradies and my mouth just drops to the floor. Oh, yeah, I get all my information from Joe Rogan.
I don't know what it is. I don't know how to describe this, but somewhere out there in the big atmosphere, the ether that we all kind of are under, there's this great polarization. There's opinions seem to be set and firm, where you can't say, well, hang on a sec, you know, maybe what is going on is a little bit different. Maybe I need to look at it a different way. Maybe we all need to just cool down a little bit and check the facts out, you know. Yeah. Your hope, I hope, is going to win.
Well, that's a valid point, but I guess it's conditioning. I feel that we should get to a point where people go, they should question everything. Question everything. You don't like that, Molly?
No, I love it.
See, the other side of it, Keith used to be a school teacher as well. You see.
But you see, there's those two words, should. You know, it does my head in, because of course it should, but all too often it isn't. And that's what really pisses me off about so many things. And, you know, like, give you a classic example, the conflict between Russia and the Ukraine.
Lee's side.
Everybody knows it should finish. Should finish. And over the last couple of months, there's been little spikes of hope that maybe the two sides are going to talk.
Well, not after last night.
But see, it's not happening. And so reality's winning out again. And I just go, you know, like, it just disappoints me, because I want the shoulds to come about. In a rich country like we have in Australia, homelessness, and we should not have cost of living crises, but we do. But we, you know, like, I just hate it.
So the words that I don't like, shoulda, woulda, coulda, if, buts and maybes, they're negative words as far as I'm concerned. Shoulda, well, do something about it. I coulda, but you didn't. Oh, but, there's no but. It just is. Oh, if you didn't do that. So let's bring it back on track, John.
We've got off track there a little bit.
Now, your surname, Caruso, you know that it's Italian origin and it's a very prominent one.
If you looked in the white pages in Sydney,
There's a heap of Smiths.
years ago, no, but Caruso, there was a heap of Carusos.
Well, it's incredible. Now, I was going to say we have radio royalty in today
radio.
with John. The royalty bit comes through your surname,
Enrico?
Caruso. It's from the Italian words mean caro and uso, translating to beloved and boy.
Yes, well, in Italian or even in Sicilian, the word Caruso means a child or a kid.
Beloved and boy, caro and uso.
Great
And it
Caruso.
used to be, it was given to and bestowed upon those of noble and respected lineage.
Oh, I'd have to disagree. My heritage.
This is from Ancestry.com.
Oh, right. Well, that's interesting because if you delve into our history, Sicily, especially after the war, was decimated, and there was great poverty, far from royalty, Lee. And the term I Garuzzi, which means the children, was probably a term given to, the kids or the children that fled from. I mean, that's exactly what my dad did. I mean, when the Allies advanced on Berlin, they travelled from Sicily north and they bombed, all the way up as they travelled up the boot, of the island, et cetera, et cetera. And so, there was far from any royalty or nobility.
Well, it suits me because it says it signified distinction and honour within their communities. And in modern day usage, the name Caruso continues to hold significance, particularly within the realm of Italian heritage and music.
Well, are you talking about Enrico Caruso from Naples?
Oh, that's one there that had been mentioned, but basically, yeah.
First recorded voice, Enrico Caruso.
And the whole thing, the same with, like you said, Keith McMullen. He said Scottish. He's nearly there. Mine's Danton, which is French and Irish. So it's a lovely mixture. I wondered where Caruso originated from. And, of course, Italian and everything else. And you can look at many, many, many examples of it. But I like that one the best. It made me go, that's John.
Oh, that's nice. Which bit? The royalty bit?
And the music.
I love the beloved boy bit.
Yeah.
I think that's so
Beloved.
Warm. So warm.
Yeah.
Look, we are rolling along here with
we
time. Let's bring you right back to today, John. You mentioned a couple of things about the digital disruption, how it's upset the media, print, radio, etc. But you and your wife are going full bore ahead with your magazines. Where is all of that up to in terms of, your personal family involvement with your magazines, where magazines in general are going? How do you see the future, particularly now with AI coming in as well? How do you see that the future of what you guys are doing unfolding?
I think there's a niche market with what we're doing, but there is a demand for the kind of lifestyle magazines, the stories, and the place geographically with these two titles. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes, and again, I got to credit Deb. There's a lot of work that goes into producing these magazines.
So are you saying this may not work in another location?
No, I'm saying there's a lot of other magazines, glossies, ones that look like pamphlets that don't really have or translate or connect with a community that I think are probably just not as good, Mully, I suppose, is what I'm saying. I think there is a position or a place for these titles at the moment moving forward. And it's proven in look at any business. In Noosa's into its 11th year and Hello Sunshine's into its 6th year. So, but not all magazines are like that. I mean, there are some very flimsy looking, the ratio of advertising and editorial can vary. Newsprint, though, is gone.
But the local newsprint, Noosa today, the newspaper in Noosa is still going quite strong, isn't it?
I can't comment on their circulation or I don't know.
Well, neither can I in terms of inside information, but it seems to be popped out every week and it's everywhere, wherever you go. So it's still live, still going.
It could do, but then again, I often, coming back to my earlier point about print or newsprint, it's like we move in such, and we can get onto the digital landscape, we move in such a, I love, by the way, I'm an adopter of technology. I'm not very tech savvy, but I love AI. I love the digital. I love streaming music on my streaming platform.
You put me on a really good platform.
Yeah, did you have a look at it?
I loved it.
It's lossless audio. If you're into it, it's fantastic.
It is.
So the point I'm making is if you know where to look for information, for example, getting a local news can often be challenging, but if you know where to look, locally, like if you subscribe to the Queensland Police Service, you get updates on what's happening on there. Reuters is free. The BBC is free. We're talking globally now. I believe, what value are you getting in a newsprint that you can't get online? Whereas again, I can't comment on other print. I'm just telling you the difference between a lifestyle magazine that has a shelf life and longevity as opposed to why newsprint is dead.
Yeah, well, newsprint, what can you get on newsprint that you can't get online? It's a good point. But what I would say in newsprint, particularly the one that's doing the circulation regularly in Noosa, is you can find out sport results, what concerts are coming, what's been happening locally in this sphere in Noosa. It does the old-fashioned newspaper thing. Where
I challenge that, Mully. So if you're a fan of the Noosa Tigers, you follow the Noosa Tigers on the socials.
Yes, but of course you do. But all you're getting is the Noosa Tigers. If you have the newspaper, you're finding out about the cricket, the surf club, the surfing, the concerts, who's done this around town. You get more of a cross-section.
I understand that. I guess what I'm saying, I'm not need to challenge you. What you're saying is, for me, I have my information. I don't spend too much on my phone, but I get everything that I need, my niche, interests. I get it.
Of course you do. But see, again, that's a specialist interest. It's not the broad.
Yeah, well, then I'm not interested. Cricket, no, who cares?
Who cares?
Are we going to end on that note?
Well, yeah, we will. Well, John, we will wrap it up. It's been a pleasure having you in this morning, and thank you so much.
Babbled on a little bit, Lee.
It's been great. I could go on for another 2 minutes at least, but until
I could go on for another hour. I'd like to ask him about Sicily. That's what I take.
Why don't I come back on another, because then I can have a go at the Greeks.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
You know not what you say, my friend, but yeah, let's book him in for John Caruso Part 2.
We'll line him up. We'll get him in. Thank you very much, John. Mully, as always, thank you. And in the meantime, take care of one another and look after yourself.